Welcome. I'm J. Michael Silver, and this is Foundational Steps, the show where I talk with people about the choices they've made to get where they are in life. In this episode, I'm talking with Megan Vick. We met years ago doing comedy improv at UCB and became friends quickly. She's a very accomplished entertainment journalist working with big outlets like TV Guide, Hollywood Reporter, and Billboard. We have a great conversation. I'm sure you're going to love it. Links for Megan and timestamps for everything that came up while we talked are below. Don't forget to leave a comment or review. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and check out our affiliate links in case there's something cool you might find valuable. Enjoy the conversation. Hello, welcome, Megan.
Hey, what's up?
Thanks for being here. This is awesome. So just to jump in and see how deep we can get off right at second one. What at what moment in your time in life did you have an experience or an awareness that you were like in your body making decisions, and your decisions and choices affected the world around you?
Well, compound question.
Yeah.
I think like my awareness of being I have a very distinct memory of like being in my body, and that was like I remember like the exact moment of like, oh, I'm a person, which was like age 3. We were having brunch at our like dining room table. My grandparents were there. We were getting ready to move out of our house. I remember that, and it was like the last time my grandparents were coming to visit that house before we moved. As far as like making decisions that affected the rest of my life, I would say I was in 8th grade.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's awesome that you have such an early memory, because I would say that's maybe just from asking this question, it's not the most common response. I definitely have an early experience. When what you remember of that moment and kind of like, oh, I'm a human, I'm like doing this thing, like, was there anything, what other memories do you have? Like, what other senses or experience or thoughts do you have around that moment that you remember?
I just like I remember I can tell you exactly where I was sitting at the table, and we had one of those. Our living room was open concept, but like there was a brick wall between the living room and the kitchen, except there was like a peek window in the brick wall.
Mhm.
And my mom was standing on like was in the kitchen, and that's like so I just remember like I came to and seeing my mom in the kitchen, and we were finishing up brunch. I remember being excited. I was a little sad to like leave our house, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like my grandparents were there. I was the center of attention. I was really excited about showing my grandmother the giant big bird I had on my bed. Like those are the memories of like running around that house. And then like I remember that specific and like the few moments after it, but like I can't tell you like, oh, what we did the next day or
Right.
anything. But
No, that
I
makes
remember
perfect
like
sense.
specifically coming to and seeing my mom in that window.
That makes so much sense to me. I mean, it also, I mentioned sometimes I get a little esoteric or the conversation gets philosophical. That's exactly what I'm talking about, because that's such a and I like there's no tangible thing you can say. Like, I just woke up, I came into my body, I was awake at 3 years old. Like, there's an objective reality from the standpoint of this is your experience, but anyone listening is like was going to most likely have to search themselves or think about that moment. And yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome that you remember that. It's so interesting to me. Now, you said 8th grade was the moment that you realized your choices actually had an effect. Just before we get there, was there anything in between 3 and 8 where you continued to kind of like this idea of being a human and this kind of being in this body? Like, was there any additional kind of like moments or thoughts or experiences that kind of compounded on that?
I mean, I was always a very introspective kid. My mom would call it contemplating my navel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, So there was a lot, I spent a lot of time like thinking about like, who am I? What am I doing? Like those sorts of things. But like I was 6. So it was like, I'm in first grade. Like that is sort of like the compound thoughts weren't that much, but I did like my friends would want to like play soccer or do these other things. And I was like, but what if we just like laid in the grass and daydreamed? Like I was a weird hippie kid in that kind of way. And my mom was just like, you're lazy. But I was like, but no, we have existential crises to figure out. Without exactly knowing what that was. So like there were sort of moments like that, but like I can't like remember any specific. I just remember like that's what I want. I would prefer to do that than play tag.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think also given the fact that, you know, to flash forward as a writer and as an interviewer and a performer and everything else that you've done and you're doing, I kind of feel like that makes perfect sense though, you know, because we met through improv. We met through comedy improv, and for whatever.
Night. About 10 years ago this month.
No, really? 10 years ago?
Yeah. It was spring. It was winter, spring of 2012.
My God. I can't, that's crazy. That's such a trip. I can't even I can't realize. I didn't realize it had been 10 years.
I thought about it when you reached out. I was like, okay, no, it's been 10 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm stumped on that one. That's crazy. I remember walking into that room. I remember some of the other people. I think you and Parday might be the only 2 people that I've stayed in touch with. Like I felt there was some sort of weird connection I felt with you and I felt with him. And not that I didn't like anyone else or didn't get along or didn't have good, you know, scenes or moments or, you know, improv with them. But for whatever reason, the 2 of you, I vibed with in a way that like, I still talk to both of you on some level or another from time to time. So I had no idea it was 10 years. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
But you I think one of the more interesting things about you and working with you back then, you know, 10 years ago, was that you did have some extra awareness about yourself and about like your experience as a person. Like you just had this like additional awareness. And I think that was what was interesting to me about you. And so now to hear 10 years later that at 3 years old, you're like, oh, I'm a human. And then at like 6 years old, like, no, we have existential concerns here. We need to just lay down and think about all this. It makes perfect sense, which is so awesome. Okay, so in 8th grade, what happened or what was going on where you started to realize these decisions and choices you were making?
So in 8th grade, I was on our math counts and algebra 1 team. I was a nerd. And we made it to the state championships, which for state it was an overnight thing, and the state championships were at the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics. Nice. Which is a public boarding school in Durham, North Carolina. And for all of the kids that participated in the state championships, you got they organized tours of the school afterwards for you to it was a recruitment thing.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah,
and
makes sense.
And it worked.
Oh, wow.
So we did this tour of the school, and I was like, first of all, you can live at school? Yes. Sign me up. 1,000%. This is where I belong. They're like, this is where all the smart kids are. And this is what all the smart kids do. And these are all the fun activities. And I at the end of the tour, I told my parents, I was like, I'm going here. And my best friend had the same, my best friend was also on that trip and she agreed. And we planned it out from that point. And everything I did from that moment on was about getting into that school.
Wow. Did your parents just go along with it or?
Oh yeah, they were very encouraged. It was a nerd school, and so the tagline, it was the largest feeder school into the Ivy Leagues in the South.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big
So,
deal.
um, and my dad, Larry, who you've met,
Yeah. Larry's awesome.
yeah, he still asks about you like all the time.
That's great. Yeah, I remember your dad, and he came to play with us once, didn't he?
He
He
came to
did
you,
improv
yeah,
with us.
he came with me to your house for one of our like improv sessions and
Yeah.
he participated.
Yeah. Like, yeah, um, I haven't thought about him in a little while, but I also haven't gotten to see you in a little while. So, but yeah, as soon as you said that, it's like, oh yeah, I'm taken right back to meeting him and everything. He
Yeah.
was such a engaging person. Like, he's just like, my memory of him and my kind of experience was just that he's like full of life, is full of love, and just is like, yeah, let's do this, whatever. Yeah, let's
He's
do it.
he gets very gung ho. He thought about being an actor for a minute, and when I say thought about being an actor, he's a community college instructor. Well, he's retired now. At the time, 10 years ago, he was a community college instructor, and he had participated in a couple of the community college plays when they needed extra people.
Nice.
Um, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I think I got the acting bug." I was like, "Please stop. No, you being in a community college production of Fences does not mean that you have the acting bug." You went, okay. So yeah, like I think him coming over and doing the improv thing was like around that same time period. So he was just like very enthusiastic, like, yeah, I
That's
can make stuff up. I
hilarious.
can be with the cool kids.
Yeah, on one side, like, God, I wouldn't wish that on him, because it's such a brutal life, trying to be an actor. But on the other side, like, hey, if he's just going to do it in local community theater, college, and whatever else, like, why not? If it makes him happy, especially if he's retired now, it's like,
Yeah,
why not? So I'm sure
he's
he's going to
got
listen.
he's got a lot of hobbies that he's working on now. Acting
Okay,
is not one of them, but he's got a lot of other
fair
fires
enough.
going on.
Well, Larry, if you're listening, I fully support anything you do, because, hey, why not, right? So, um, all right. So, eighth grade, you've made this big life decision. This is what you're going to do, and everything is evolves around that for the next, year, next 6 months.
Uh, 3 years. So like the North Carolina School of Science and Math, you get admitted as a junior in high school. It's your last 2 years of high school.
Oh, okay.
So I finished middle school, but like the classes I decided to take my first 2 years of high school
Mhm.
were based on like what's going to look best at science and math, and they told us they're like the kids who get in are the ones who have utilized all of the resources at their current school and have run out of things that they can do at their own school. That's sort of the kids that got accepted. So like I
Gotcha.
took so like I gave up an elective so I could take an extra science class. I took night algebra, which was actually for like remedial students who needed it to graduate.
But what benefit did it give you then?
So but like they still called it like algebra 2.
Ah,
So like I got the credit for doing algebra 2 and so
you,
I could go to pre-cal a year early. But
nice.
like I didn't actually take algebra 2 because it was like they were teaching kids slope intercept form, which I don't know anybody. I'm probably giving kids PTSD, but y equals mx plus b. Like
Okay.
that's what we were like getting up to in like the second to last week of this class. And like that's the start of algebra 1. So it was, but I took pre-cal early, and that's like I got into that school,
Yeah.
and like getting into science and math sort of like was like the first like real building block of like, oh, this is where my life is going. Like I can trace everything that I've done back from decisions I made by getting into science and math.
Yeah. I love that you're saying that too, because that's one of the things that I definitely have done and do is I can trace decisions, and, there's a whole tree, or however you want to, think about it, conceptually, of, all of the branches and all of the, things. And it's like, God, if I had gone this way, I would have gone this way, but I made the decision to be here. Like, and I've made so many decisions that's gotten me here. So I can't really claim any pain or suffering when I've put this on myself. Like, I made these decisions. It's my fault. So, it's it's kind of empowering and also sometimes frustrating when you're able to see it like that, where it's like, I'm responsible for this.
Yeah.
Um, so math and science, which I was also massively math and science oriented in high school. Excuse me. And I mean, I know you as a writer. I know you as an entertainer, as, you know, someone who is not a math and science person. So
Yeah.
I guess the obvious question is, first is, did going there and doing math and science your last 2 years, did that propel you? Because I don't even know where you went to college. Did it propel you to Ivy League? Did you think
No.
about that?
Oh, no. So, it was I had a quarter life crisis at the age of 16, or whatever you call that. I don't know, an eighth life crisis.
Yeah,
Like,
eighth, yeah.
so okay, multiple things happened at the same time. I realized that writing was at least like an outlet or something that I enjoyed when I was in third grade. That's when I wrote my first like short story.
Okay.
And it was a thing that like I did continuously from then, but like I was not conscious of, like, it was just a thing that I did, and I didn't really wasn't making decisions around it. That wasn't the plan.
Right.
I think like rather than being a writer, I think like the earliest notion I had of a career was I wanted to be a book editor. That was like, but I wasn't very serious about it. And like sort of what happened when I got to science and math was I started letting my very obsessive personality start making decisions. So I get to science and math, and again, I was a nerd before, and I was always one, if not the smartest, one of the smartest kids in my class. And I got to science and math, and that was no longer the case, and that was extremely difficult for me. There was a whole identity crisis. I got my first C, and then I got just like report cards full of C's, and I didn't know, like, that was a major depressive episode.
Oh, okay. So just to you know, kind of call it out.
Yeah.
You know, you have certain, you had to cope, and you had to deal with the fact that things are not going your way all of a sudden. So what were the coping mechanisms? Like, how did you deal with it? Because obviously you're very smart, and you're very hyper aware at a very young age. So it's not like you're just, you know, like the average teenager, so to speak. You know, the stereotype, I should say, not necessarily the average, but the stereotype is, you know, drugs, alcohol, sex, you know, anything, comic books, you know, things that are going to form some sort of escape, or some sort of athletics. So did being hyper aware and being, you know, having to be forced into this coping of like, oh my God, this is what's happening to me. What did you do, and how'd you deal with it?
I mean, there were unhealthy things. I couldn't do drugs, sex, or alcohol because you would get kicked out of the school for that. And I was still like a goody two shoes. So food became one of them, which is still a thing me and my therapist are figuring out. And then the other thing was Panic at the Disco. Like, so I was in high school in 2005, just to, like, that's when this was happening.
Sure.
Right.
So that became you put them on, you'd listen to them.
Right. And I had enough Panic at the Disco shirts that I had a different one for every day of the week. So that was like anytime you saw me, I was in a Panic at the Disco shirt. And I, like, again, this is my obsessive personality. That became like my personality. That was like a core tenet of my personality, that I was obsessed with this band. Yeah. So then here's where, interesting that you brought up, you don't know where I went to college. After my first C, I realized I was not going to get into an Ivy League school. Harvard doesn't take C students. But my dad suggested that I apply to Northeastern in Boston because my uncle's ex-girlfriend went there, and my dad thought it would be, they used to hang out with her when he was in college, so we thought it'd be like a good whatever. My dream had been to go to BU and write for they had a student soap opera that I wanted to write for.
Oh, cool.
But I got into Northeastern, and Northeastern gave me a full tuition scholarship. So that
Makes it
changed
easy.
everything. And then when I got the acceptance, I realized that one of the majors they had was music industry.
Hmm.
So that's where I went to college, and I majored in music industry because of my love for Panic at the Disco. And then I realized I couldn't be an artist, so I minored in journalism, and then so I started on this path to become like a writer at Rolling Stone so that I could profile Panic at the Disco.
Okay, so this is inside information, which I know you won't. I know you won't have a problem me sharing this, but you are also like a massive Dawson's Creek fan.
Uh-huh.
So like, and I know more about your Dawson's Creek obsession than Panic at the Disco. This is the first time I've heard about Panic at the Disco. So how or why was Panic at the Disco more important or more informative or more shaping whatever than Dawson's Creek?
I think it was just like the timing of it, like at that particular time. Dawson's Creek was no longer on the air at that point, and we were in a pre-streaming era. So the only way for me to watch Dawson's Creek was on DVDs, really. So like Dawson's Creek was, if we were having this conversation about like me in eighth grade when I decided to go to science and math, I was extremely invested in Dawson's Creek and those things, and I still am very invested in Dawson's Creek. But at the time that this was going down and I was having this crisis and I didn't know what I wanted to do, like Panic at the Disco was like the thing at the time. So I made the decision based on that.
Gotcha.
And I went through all 4 years of college. Like that was the goal. My senior year of college, I did a co-op, so a 6-month internship at Billboard magazine. That was my big thing. And I did so well at Billboard that they asked me to continue freelancing even when I went back to school for my last semester.
Wow.
And they asked me to interview Panic for like the lead section of the music section. So like I got to go to New York, see them in person, talk to them. I have that issue of the magazine like framed. It's hanging on my staircase right now. It was a really big thing. But again, things happened sort of all at the same time. The Social Network came out while I was in that internship.
Oh, right.
And I saw Andrew Garfield and I was like, I love him. This is now the thing. And I also like being at Billboard, like really, I realized that like the dream that I had of like almost famous, like being on tour buses, like that wasn't real anymore. And that like people who write cover stories for magazines are doing it over the phone. And it like, I did not have the love for it that I thought I would once I was actually in it.
Yeah.
So then I saw The Social Network and it changed me. And I decided like then my senior year of college, like, oh, I want to write movies that make me feel the way that this movie made me feel. So I like pivoted in my senior year of college. I finished out being a music industry and journalism major, but my aunt lived in California and I was like, I want to come to LA and I want to try screenwriting, so then after graduation, I moved in with my aunt and started like 6 months after I moved in with her, I took an improv class at UCB. And like that sort of, it's been that trajectory since.
That's hilarious. Okay. That all makes sense now. All right. That makes, from a personal standpoint of knowing you, that now connects all of the dots. But that's, how amazing is that though, that Panic at the Disco was the reason behind you going that direction. You get a job with Billboard and you're able to actually meet them and interview them. I mean, that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Like when I asked you to be on as a guest to do this, you said something kind of glib around the idea of like, I don't know, like talk to me about my being a fangirl and whatever, how interesting that's going to be. And like, I think you just kind of proved why that is super interesting, because you took your fangirl like obsession with Panic at the Disco, turned it into a job. You were so good at it, you actually got to meet Panic at the Disco. Like if that's not inspirational, I don't know what is. I mean, that's just awesome.
I mean, that's sort of, and that's how it's continued. I've met Andrew Garfield because after I struggled a while trying to find a job, I ended up doing social media for Deepak Chopra and the Chopra family for like a year.
Okay.
and then I got laid off from that job.
Was it, that was after we had met? That was after improv?
Right, yeah. So
Okay.
I got that job in like the late summer 2012, and you and I met in the spring of 2012.
Okay.
So I did work for them for like, I think like 2 years.
I feel like I must have known, because I know we were still talking a little bit more regularly at that point in time.
Yeah.
I must have known, but it's the timing of everything. Like, I think it's more important now. I think had I been in where I was at headset wise in college, then Deepak Chopra and his family and everything would have been super, super amazing. And I think now, like, that's super, super amazing. And I think I was probably in that period of time, I was kind of struggling to figure out how to kind of recapture myself and how to move forward.
You were definitely at like a crossroads. You were trying to figure, you were at a like, do I keep trying to do this or not?
Yeah.
Place.
I think I was, to put it not so nicely, or maybe putting on exactly on the nose, I was too self-absorbed to think about anything else. I mean, that's the funny thing about acting. That's why, I said what I said about, God, I wouldn't wish this on anyone on one hand, when, talking about your dad, and acting, because it's a business first and foremost. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter what you're willing to sacrifice, how hard you work. It just doesn't matter. If you see yourself this way and they see yourself this way, and you don't want to go along with this, then they have no value for you whatsoever. And, they meaning Hollywood. And even then, even if you line up with what they think you should line up for, you still have to have the right opportunities and the right circumstances. And so it was a long road, because at that point in time, I'd already been out here for 12 years, 12 plus years. That makes sense. God, it's so funny. It makes sense on one hand, but on the other hand, I just can't believe that we've known each other for that long. So, okay. I'm still tripping over all of that. So like, anyways, so you're working with Chopra, and you're doing that. How did you, because you're still with TV Guide?
I am now. Yeah.
Okay. When did TV Guide start?
I got laid off by the Chopras in 2014, and a few weeks after that, a friend of mine we were roommates in college, like very briefly, but like we were just very good friends throughout college. She was an editor at a defunct website now called Zap to It. Okay. And they had an opening, and I was like, yeah, I need a job, and I love TV, and like, here's the list of everything that I'm watching. So she really gave me my start, and I was there for 2 years. And then after that, I went to TV Guide, and I've been at TV Guide ever since.
Yeah. And that's where you've gotten the opportunities to meet Andrew Garfield and all the other amazing.
I met Andrew Garfield while I was at Zap to It still. Again, that same friend Terry, she got it was post Spider-Man. He did a little movie called 99 Homes. It's about the crash of the housing market in 2007. Laura Dern plays his mom in that movie. Nuts.
Yeah.
Hollywood. Yeah. But we got the invite to go to the junket, and Terry was like, if I send you on this, could you be cool?
Of course she said yes.
I was like, yeah, it's good. I was not cool. Here's what happened.
That's awesome.
I had several friends up until that point who had encountered him and had not like gotten an autograph for me, or any, like they saw him and then didn't do anything about it. So it had become a joke, sort of a joke amongst my friends, but not really, that I was like, okay, I don't want to meet Andrew Garfield. Have you seen the show Community, Mike?
Yes, I'm not a super fan, but I've seen a number of episodes. Really great show.
Okay. There is a specific episode which Chevy Chase's character is in the hospital. He's pretending to be dying, and then
Yes.
he
I've actually seen that one.
he enacts these things of like emotional terrorism on everybody in the study group. And specifically for Donald Glover's character Troy, he brings LeVar Burton to the hospital, and Troy freaks out and is like, I specifically told Pierce I did not want to meet LeVar Burton. I wanted an autographed picture of LeVar Burton because you can't disappoint a signed picture of LeVar Burton.
Right.
This is going to be a very convoluted story. So I had been watching Community. That was in presence of my mind. Before Andrew got cast as Spider-Man, there was a large internet campaign to have Donald Glover play Spider-Man and for them to do Miles Morales instead of Peter Parker. Again,
that would have been cool. Well,
it would have been
possible, I feel like.
I think, well, they had him in No Way Home and like teased that he would be Miles Morales' uncle. Okay. Not No Way Home. Homecoming. It's the first
Homecoming. Yeah.
Anyway, Andrew and Donald met, they became friends because of that whole internet campaign. And in the EPK, so like the DVD extras for the first Spider-Man, he's like, yeah, like I'm such a huge fan of Donald Glover, whatever. I'm a fan of everything that he does. This is important. He says this, I'm a fan of everything that he does. There's a little like wink to him in the movie, and they have a Childish Gambino poster in Peter's room.
Nice.
Like, oh, Andrew's a big fan of everything that Donald has done. I feel like he is my LeVar Burton, who I don't want to meet because I will disappoint. So I just want a signed picture. And I was like, I got this is genius. I want an Andrew Garfield signed picture of LeVar Burton. And I tasked everyone. I was like, if you see him, like, even if you just got to draw LeVar Burton on a napkin, just get him to sign a picture of LeVar Burton. Yeah, no one did it. No one helped me out. I had like 4 different friends see him and no one helped me. So I was like, okay, screw it. So then
okay. I'm with you because I feel like this is also something that Andrew, based on what you know or what you've told me, would also love the idea of this. So he would probably get a kick out of it on a whole nother level from the standpoint of So okay. Keep
so glad you're optimistic, Mike.
Oh, okay.
So we get the invite for this junket. Terry sends me. I go to Office Depot. I print out like an HD headshot of LeVar Burton, and I take it with me to this junket. And I remember I walked to the way junkets work for those not initiated is like they sit the star in a hotel room and they just rotate journalists out. So I walked into the hotel room. I have a composition book, and the picture of LeVar Burton is facing him when I walk in. And I remember this. I remember exactly. He was drinking a cup of tea, sees LeVar Burton, spills the tea down his sweater. So that's a whole. I was like, we're off to a great start. And he's like, do you want to explain that? And I was like, yeah, I will afterwards. Whatever. We do the interview. It's 4 minutes, maybe. And he's like, okay, like what is the deal? And I was like, okay. I was like, you've watched Community, right? He goes, no, I haven't.
Oh.
So immediately I was like, oh, this is terrible. This is the worst thing. I was like, okay, well, like, there's an I go through the whole spiel that I just gave you, and I was like, you're like my LeVar Burton, so like, could you sign this picture of LeVar Burton for me? Because you're like my favorite. And it was like so awkward as he's doing it, but then the guy who was one of the cameramen who was filming the junket, he just goes like, that is awesome. And I was like, he saved it. I was like, thank you so much. I was like, it's about 50-50 about people who get it. And Andrew, bless his heart, goes like, I get it. And in my head, I'm like, you literally just said you didn't. Like,
well, but you know, he might have not got it. But then as soon as the camera dude said, that's so awesome, he goes, oh, and the mental math kicks in. So it might have been, and then him feeling kind of stupid that he didn't get it faster. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm being kind, but I feel like that's probably what happened.
I will, spoiler alert, he's got a new show coming out on FX some point this year.
Okay.
And my friend is a publicist on the show. So like, I feel like another encounter is possible.
Yeah.
And my like, I don't know if I like want him to, or if it is my worst fear that he's like, I remember you. Well,
listen, I mean, I I have no idea where my acting career is going at this point in time. I'm just kind of leaving it up to the gods and to my agent, because I've just been at it for 20 over for too long, for long enough, whatever. And so, but I'll tell you this, if I ever got on that show, whether it was, for 3 lines or 3 days or 3 weeks, I would absolutely say something to him and be like, listen, I don't even know what I'd say at this point in time, but that is such a genius, amazing, wonderful story that I feel like this just could be a running gag, thing for him and you and anyone that knows you and anyone that knows him for the next 20 years. I just think it would be hilarious.
I'm trying to like figure out how to ask. I was like, I need to ask my friend of like, can you find some way to like organically work into conversation? Just be like, what's the most memorable thing someone has ever asked you to sign? And I was like, let's just gauge where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean,
let's see what happens. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
But see, okay, so I feel that, and I think that's a good strategy. However, I would say that there is a possibility that because he didn't put the mental math together quickly, that there might be a little bit of embarrassment around, the whole thing, which means he may have tried to quash that. You know what I mean? Because embarrassing moments are either something we remember and can't forget, or they're things that we don't, we just tuck in a
Yeah.
hole and that's that. So, I don't know.
Well, I will let you know if I do end up in his presence at
Yeah.
some point in the year 2022.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I mean, who knows? The show could go for a minute and you could end, it could be 2023. So I mean, depending on if it's a limited run or if it's a successful show that goes for a couple seasons.
I think it's it's based on a true crime book, so I think it's going to be like a limited series.
Okay.
But like whether they're going to try and push it for this year's Emmy cycle or next year's Emmy cycle is TBD.
Right. And that will dictate whether you have an opportunity or not.
Yeah.
I hope you do. And
I do when I don't. I'm scared.
You can't be scared. I mean, I understand you can't be scared, but like this should just be an exercise of pure joy in my mind, because this is what makes us human. You know what I mean? This is like what makes it real for me, at least, is these kinds of weird, quirky kind of things. And I feel like, another picture of LeVar Burton as you walk in.
I still have it. We a couple years ago, God, when there was that fire behind the Warner Brothers lot,
Mm-hmm.
I live like across the street from there, so it was a like you need to pack up your stuff just in case kind of day. It was the first thing that I packed besides my cats.
That's awesome. Yeah, you just need a newer version of LeVar Burton's photo, like however many years has passed, you just need that newer picture. And God, I mean, I don't know. This is just me. I always probably make too much of everything, but I also kind of feel like at some point in time you're going to need an autographed picture of Andrew Garfield by LeVar Burton as well at some point.
Oh man.
I mean, I just
to make it like a complete set, and LeVar's gonna be like, because LeVar will remember Community and what that whole thing is about,
right? I just kind of feel like that might be something you need to have. Like, I don't know. Like,
LeVar Burton is a lot easier to get to than Andrew.
I mean, I would
I
don't know.
As a TV journalist, I can
okay.
tell you like LeVar, he's just in a lot more things a lot more frequently.
Yeah.
So like, especially like TV things, like, and he's always doing stuff on PBS, and PBS is like, do you want to write about something?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, LeVar is also, he's been famous for 40 years.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I mean, he's kind of an icon. And then put on top of that, like he's also part of the whole Star Trek, world, which is a whole, you know, crazy fandom unto itself.
I
So I
think he's also
mean,
like, he's probably going to be back on Picard now.
oh, I hope so. I love the first season. I don't have Paramount, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the second season. I think I got a free thing for the first season, so I'm going to see if maybe I can get a free thing for the second season of Picard.
Just change that email address, man.
Right, exactly. Jean-Luc, oh my God, I'm blanking on the actor's name.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart is like, I've never met him, but to me, he's one of those people that like, I think every actor should aspire, or every just human should aspire to being, because he's just such, for everything I know about him, he's just such a kind, generous person. Like I've never heard anything bad about him. He just seems like such an amazing human.
I've only had like very brief encounters with him, but yes, like valid. I've never had any, like there was no sense of negativity whatsoever.
Yeah, he just seems like one of those amazing people. But also LeVar Burton also seems like one of those people, and I feel like he would be game to play the game. You know what I mean? Because like he understands being in his position, being famous for 40 years, and being on Star, part of the Star Trek universe. He's got to understand crazy fandom in a way that very few people would, I would think. So for there to be, especially having done that episode of Community, for there to be like someone out there who is a journalist who meets successful famous people all the damn time, to have this whole thing, I just feel like he would, in my mind, he would appreciate this whole idea, and I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just making more of it than needs to be, but that's where I would take it. So that's a little bit of a off track from where we started, but so getting back to like your choices and everything else, how had your coping I know you said you still talk to your therapist about food, so what other things did you start to do? I know you started working out a few years back and started like taking that more seriously. So what other things have you started in the past, and why, or what did you start to kind of act as an additional coping mechanism or something else, while, trying to make life happen,
I mean, there's several things I went through different phases. I have always written like my job is writing, but I've always written recreationally as well. Like throughout high school and all of that, while all of that was going on, like I was raised by the internet, basically. Yeah. So I was on LiveJournal, I was in fan fiction circles, I was role playing like on the internet for a very long time. I still I'm trying to sort of like figure out like what is the recreational writing thing I want to be doing at this. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm working on this TV script. Sometimes it's like I'm trying to write a book. Other times it's whatever. I will say during the pandemic, my major coping mechanism during the pandemic became K-pop.
Okay.
Which I had purposefully avoided, because as we've seen, I have a very obsessive personality, and when I get involved, I get deeply involved in things, and it has a tendency to take over my entire life. Literally, I will make life decisions based on things I'm obsessed with. So I had avoided K-pop specifically because I was like, I am looking at other people who I think of as rational adults lose their minds over this, so like I can't do this.
So, okay, so you did that.
So I did do it, and it happened exactly as I thought it would happen. And so now I have, you can't see it, but there's like a whole like BTS section of my office that's
now, is
over
BTS
here.
The only K-pop that you've gotten into, or have you gone down the rabbit hole? And
no, they're like a gateway drug.
Okay.
And so it started there. But now there's like Stray Kids and Tomorrow by Together and Monsta X and Eric Nam and all of these, like I'm learning Korean, like all of it is happening. And And I would used to like feel like shame around that kind of like, oh, I'm in my 30s and I love Cape. Like I would feel like I would have to hide that, but it's like, oh my, I think after the past 2 years, it's like, screw it, man. You got to do what you have to do to feel happy out here. So like, if this is what I enjoy doing, this is what I enjoy doing. Everybody else can suck it.
So I just realized something. So there's a connection, a weird kind of connection here to community, you and someone that I've become a fan of. So because of you and because of your fandom or fangirl-ishness, or however you say that, um, at one point in time in the last however long, I was watching Walking Dead, and I'd watch Talking Dead now and again. And Yvette Nicole Brown started coming on, and like I said, I watched Community, but I was never like, I haven't seen every episode. Like usually if I watch a show, I see every single episode. But it came on at a time where I was trying to limit how much TV I was watching. So I think other than a few episodes here and there, I never got into it. So I started seeing her on The Walking Dead, and she actually reminds me of you, or vice versa. Well, I knew more about you and knew you before her, so she reminds me of you, and watching her fandom made me think about your fandom, and made me think that, like, because I feel like you need to embrace your fandom, and I think you need to, like, screw it, who cares what other people think. And I feel like she's the perfect example of like why fandom can work for you, and
Yeah.
why just sharing what you love is so important, because she's the most famous fangirl there is, I think. You know what I mean?
I think so. And like, first of all, that's a great compliment. I've met Yvette a few times, and she is like talking about gems of humans. Like she is
Yeah. I
the
saw
best.
her at a restaurant in Studio City. I went to have like brunch with a friend, and she was there, and I instantaneously got nervous, because this is just maybe like 4 years ago or something like that. And I instantaneously got nervous because there was part of me that felt like I could easily go and talk to her, because I feel like, and it's honestly because of you, because there's like, you have that same kind of fangirl kind of thing, and same kind of like, just, you're easygoing, easy to talk to. And I felt like, oh, I could do that. I'm wait, no, she's a famous person. Some strange white guy coming up to her is probably not okay at a restaurant when she's with her girlfriends. And I was like, all right, no, I just like, don't say anything. And in my head now, I have a different kind of feeling about that. But at the time, I was very self-conscious and very kind of like nervy about it. Now I feel like I would only shower her with, love and compassion. You know what I mean? Like, how could she not appreciate that, as long as, I was respectful and, wasn't trying to monopolize her time or anything else,
Yeah.
so.
It's tricky when people are eating. And I feel like this is like a very LA problem of like, how do you handle seeing a celebrity at brunch? Because
Yeah.
it only happens like here in New York.
Yeah. Mostly.
Yeah. And here I feel like more often just because density, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it is tricky of like, oh, they're eating. Like, can you say something, whatever? But I also like, I try to think of it as like, if I were somewhere and someone had felt inspired or happy or whatever because of something that I did, I would want to know about it. But again, it goes back to like, don't feel like you can then join them for brunch. That's
exactly.
not
Exactly. There's a line. There's a line.
There's like, go like say your really nice thing, do whatever, and then yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the key. And I mean, I don't think it was until more recently that I even thought that was even a possibility, because I did Marvel's Agents of Shield with Bill Paxton, the late Bill Paxton, and I've seen every movie he's done. and he was giving me compliments, and he was so nice. And I'm standing there one afternoon or evening chatting with him, and like we're just having a casual conversation, and part of me is just freaking out because I'm like, I don't want to be, I don't want to annoy him. And again, this is old thinking. This is like 10 years ago. Um, but I just felt like so bad that I was having these like fan thoughts. Um, and I just wanted to be a normal human being with him. And I feel like I just completely missed every opportunity in the world. And when he passed away, it was like such a regret. Like I should, like I was like, I damn it, like, because it wasn't like seeing him in a restaurant. I was working with him. Like I was already having conversations with him.
You
And
had the in, Mike.
I had the in, and I didn't tell him how much I appreciated him, how much I loved his movies, and like, like True Lies. He was so awesome in True Lies.
That was a good one.
Like that's like a perfect example of how great of a character actor he was. And like I didn't take an opportunity to share that with him. And it's one thing, the boundaries you have like at a restaurant, in a public place, but when you're working with someone, if you can't share that, then when can you? Like, I mean, what are you waiting for? What else is there? And I just, yeah, it's the biggest Hollywood regret I have.
I mean, I really, in a lot of ways, because like, again, I've been a fangirl, again, going back to like age 3, because we used to watch Beverly Hills 90210 as a family. Actually, even before then, when normal kids had invisible friends, like I pretended that I was hanging out with Raffi and Michael Jackson. Like,
get that? I totally get that.
And I can like track every like major Hollywood crush I had. Like, it's continuous. They just ebb and flow into each other. Mm-hmm. For the whole time. And it's like, especially when I was a teenager and like in college, especially like being a music industry major, there was this real like, oh, you're a fan? Like, you're not credible if you're a fan. But like everybody was, you cannot work in that industry. You cannot work in entertainment without being a fan. You will not survive. There's no reason to put yourself through this crap.
See, I think that's part of the reason why I felt like I couldn't say something to Bill, because I feel like there was an us and them mentality at one point in time. And I think the walls are coming down because of social media, because of Twitter and Instagram, where you can just reach out to these people and maybe they don't respond, but you can just reach out to anybody and everybody. And so I think maybe the walls have come down. But I definitely, over 20 years ago when I moved out here, there was definitely a mentality of you're either in the business or you're outside of the business. And if you're in the business, then this has got to be normal fare. And you've got to be a human, and they've got to be a human kind of thing. You can't be a fan. Like in some weird way, I feel like that was the messaging that I got, is that I couldn't be a fan if I was an actor on set, and if I was auditioning, and if I was going to be, if I was going to have a career doing this. And honestly, I think it hurt me as an actor, because it kept me from being as authentic as I could possibly be. And being an actor, the most important thing is to speak your truth. And if you're hiding any part of yourself, then it becomes more difficult to be authentic in front of the camera. And so, I don't know.
I think it's people, when you say that you're a fan of something, they automatically like take it to an extreme. Yeah. But like it is entirely possible to be a fan and be a human at the same time.
Absolutely.
And it's like knowing, and I like, listen, when I was younger and I was in my I went on a couple of job interviews before I got that job at Billboard where I did not know the balance, and I did go too far into fan territory, and then I did not get those jobs, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But like, as now I've been doing entertainment journalism for over 12 years now. Mm-hmm. And I think of the people that I have interviewed multiple times that I have the best rapport with, like people that I like. If we get on the phone or like I see them at a junket or something, they are like excited to see me. Every single one of those people, I express being a fan of.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't do it in a weird, like creep, like overly, like, oh my God, like whatever. It was just like, just an honest, like, I appreciate the work that you're doing or have done, or like it did it in some way. And like, that has resonated in further. So like now there's a point, like we have, I don't ever want to say we're friends, because like this is my rule. If you can't text someone and say that like, hey, let's go get a beer, you're not friends.
Right.
But like friendly acquaintances with these actors that like, well, I've talked to you for every season that the show has been on the air. So like now we have like a thing. And the ones that I'm closest to again are the ones that I was not hiding the fact of like, no, like I love this. I love this thing that you did. And they are enthusiastic. They listen. Actors love being validated.
It's true. It's true. I don't care how much humility you have. I don't care how at peace you are with all the whatever, actors, we do not do this if not for the audience. It is about making people happy, about giving them an experience, about taking them someplace they didn't know they could even go or think or feel or whatever. And, there is no purpose for an actor if not to, make someone feel something. So to get the validation that you have done that, it's the only way you've done your job. Like everything else, like, and I think this is one of the problems in the entertainment industry from a mental health standpoint for entertainers. And I think most entertainers have this, not just actors, but, musicians as well. We can have a level of success and not know if we're really touching people, reaching people, and people are getting us the way we want to get to them or affect them or, move them. And, just making money doesn't do it. Getting the right project makes you feel good, but you still don't know if you're actually moving people in the way you want to move them. And so I feel like, and this is my evolved perspective, like, and that's why, like, I feel like anytime I have an opportunity where I don't think I'm crossing the line, then it's like, it's almost my job to let someone know how wonderful I think they are, because, I want to know someone thinks I'm wonderful. And I feel like we're all better when we find out, someone thinks we're wonderful. So
it's so interesting that you bring that. So like the addictive thing about K-pop that I've recently come to understand is this idea of parasocial relationships.
Okay.
So in normal, like I will say Western fandoms, like the idea of a parasocial relationship is like when you have like an idol, an actor that you really love, and you formed this relationship with them that is not exactly real, right? Like it is the relationship that I have with Andrew Garfield. Like he and I are not in an actual relationship, but like I have a deep relationship to the work that he has done, the effects. Like, so that is a parasocial relationship where it's not an actual like direct thing. And like people have it like people like Justin Bieber or whatever, or Taylor Swift. The thing that's like addictive about K-pop and what they've mastered in their marketing is making it feel like a mutual parasocial relationship.
Oh, interesting.
So the thing is, like, you have this relationship with these bands, like you watch their concerts when you want to be comforted. They have these variety shows that you watch, and you project all of these feelings onto these bands and these band members. But they have been trained and they are brought up in this environment where there's like, they do talk to you back on social media, and like they write songs that are specifically for you. And when like they talk about like what is their purpose in life, it is always the fan base, like always. And like, and
That's amazing.
everybody who talks about BTS is like, why is like ARMY so intense? It's because they've groomed this group of fans to be like, to believe that they are as important to BTS as BTS is to them. And that makes it sound like it's not true. I genuinely believe that like these boys.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Let's just be really, really clear. As an artist, I don't care what kind of art you do, whether you're a painter, photographer, actor, musician, singer, it doesn't matter. We don't make a living unless the fans love us and want to, you know, pay money to see us, to buy tickets, to buy our art, to buy, you know, whatever it is. So like, I think it sounds like to me, they have figured out how to legitimize that reality where.
That's exactly it. And like when they specifically talk about marketing and they're talking about, so like every K-pop group is signed to a company, record label, etc.
Okay.
But when they like talk about like company decisions, like they've said, like the company doesn't ask what's going to make us the most money. They're like, what is the fan base going to enjoy most? Because they've already done the calculus of like, if you do what they enjoy most, the money just comes after that.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's 100%. I mean, that's one of the things, like, you know, starting this show to a certain extent, because I really want to help people with this show. I want to offer a service that would typically cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month. Because typically speaking, you know, when you work as a coach or a consultant, and you're, you know, working with people, you share stories. Sometimes they're your stories, sometimes they're other people's stories, and you try to get them to understand how to begin to rewrite their story and be able to edit the story of their life so that they can live the life that they want to live. And if it's more of a business-minded consulting, then, you know, it's around business and it's around money and it's around sales and all that thing. If it's more of like a life coaching kind of situation, then it's like, well, who do you want to be? And, you know, what aspects of yourself do you not like? And how do we get you to understand those are actually desirable qualities in you and why other people like you or love you even? And so it's a lot about storytelling and it's a lot about rewriting story. So to me, this format, talking to as many people as I can and getting people like yourself to share their personal journey, then other people get to feel seen and heard and get to feel like they're part of a conversation that they otherwise wouldn't get to be a part of. And will allow them to begin to think about their life in a different way and allow them to maybe see themselves in a different way and then begin to have the shift and change that they want. And I mean, that's the entire purpose behind me doing this. And like, I would love to be a coach and a consultant to the world for free, but you know, you got to feed yourself. That's obvious. B, there's only so much time. How do you work with everyone? You can't. So like, this is the easiest way in my mind to help as many, which is also always why I wanted to be an actor in the first place, because you're going to move large groups of people. Like, you're going to get them to think about things and story and character. Like, if I played a villain, like, and I bring humanity to that villain, then people are going to think, oh, wow, that villain is kind of sad or maybe charming, or I never thought of someone that's, you know, doing this horrible thing to these other group of people as being charming or sad or whatever. And it creates, I think, a little bit more empathy and a little bit more understanding to maybe, you know, have a conversation instead of just get mad and throwing bombs, you know. Well,
the whole idea of villains and heroes is perspective anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're the villain because we're coming at it from your adversary's point of view. Whereas you can easily move, you can move the camera around to the other side. Yes. And it's like, I say, take Black Panther, for example. If we had started with Killmonger And he's like, oh no, like these people like killed my dad.
Yeah.
And now they're hoarding all of this like precious materials and not helping people that look like us around the world. Like he had, right? It's just the fact that like we came from it from Jadal's point of view. So like, yeah.
No, that's it. And that, I mean, that's to me, and obviously to you, that is the whole purpose or value behind being a storyteller, you know, whether you're a writer or an actor or a combination of both. And music does, I think, some of that in a different way. But yeah, I mean, that's it. That's the kind of the everything. And why, you know, art in general is so important is because it gives you perspective. And with perspective, you can change anything. I mean, it's kind of what moves mountains to a certain extent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Couldn't say better myself.
I feel like we've kind of hit everything we need to hit in this, you know, kind of first go around. Obviously we can come back and do this again and again and again over the next, I plan on doing this for a long time to come. So, do you have any closing thoughts or any, you know, regarding coping mechanisms or making choices or kind of how you move through life or anything?
I mean, the thing for me I've always done is that like you have to follow what you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about, you're not gonna survive anything.
Yeah. What's the point if you don't enjoy it?
And secondly, like I think this is especially like for younger people. I know I struggled with it from middle school to like my early 20s of like the thing that you think makes you weird is actually going to be the thing that like you need to be marketing at the forefront.
Yes.
And the more you try to like dampen that down to try and like fit in with everybody else, that's the time that you were wasting. And you really should be leaning into it because it's going to be the thing that makes you happy or whatever your definition of successful is. Leaning into whatever that is going to get you that much sooner.
Yeah, that's awesome. That actually may end up being the episode title. Leaning into it is what's going to make you successful. It certainly worked for you. I mean, thus far, and you know, you still have, you know, so much ahead of you, obviously. But this has been so awesome. So thank you so much. Hold with me. Don't forget to leave a comment or a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. New episodes every Tuesday, and check us out on YouTube for short clips from each episode. Thank you. And until next time, remember, your life story is yours to write and rewrite as many times as you want.